Hi everyone, I'm here today basically because I've tried a Facebook Live and it hasn't worked. This location, I'm right on the edge of a cliff, as you can see. So it's a nice scenic location, but it's not convenient for our technological advancement, I guess, at this stage. So what I'm sharing today was about simplicity, and more specifically, living slowly and living simply. And for a lot of us, it's a foreign concept because we've been trained to be so competitive, and time poor is such a easy cop out for many of us to say, oh, I'm time poor, or I'm in a rush, or the urgency of the moment means I have to keep surging forward or just struggle through. And there's lots of medications about pseudoephedrine to keep you at work, even when you've got the flu, you've got blocked sinuses this time of year, which is midwinter in Australia. They give you those like paracetamol with pseudoephedrine to keep you working, to keep you nose to the grindstone, to keep you moving. And that's one of the main things I wanted to talk about with the idea of slow. I'll just pan around so you can see the background, to see the idea of living slowly. And it comes from the idea many of us feel trapped or stuck on a treadmill, as though, and I know it, I've lived it, go to work Monday to Friday, come home Friday night, sort of have celebration, maybe go out for dinner, wake up Saturday morning, attend to your chores around the house, get some alignment there, spend a bit of family time, then Sunday hits, you might have an obligation with extended family or some friends or relatives, and then it's pretty much Sunday night, maybe connect the bill a bit spiritually, then you're back at work on Monday again, and so on it goes. That's the cycle, okay? And that's what some people call living on a treadmill. And a treadmill is an interesting thing because it actually, I always used to think of just a rat in a cage going round and round. That's the Smashing Pumpkins, you know, despite all my rage, I am still just a rat in a cage. But beyond that, the idea of a treadmill was used in the workhouses in Victorian England in the 1809, 1811 it came in, because they had all these people living on the public purse or the homeless in the workhouses, and they were just sort of sitting around idle. So one smart chap came up with the idea to put people on a treadmill, and it was a big cylinder, like let's say the size of a bus roughly, and you'd have to walk along the treadmill, like walk, and there'd be 30 of you in a line, and if you didn't keep up with it, you'd fall behind or you'd get hit by the treadmill. So you'd have to just keep lifting and keep turning this treadmill, and the treadmill itself would power a mill to grind grain or something to pump water or something like that. So people would be stuck to the treadmill, and it was outlawed, and it was declared illegal in 1898. So it went around for nearly 100 years before it was declared a cruel and unusual punishment. But by 1898, and I've got a big history, and I've got a history in history, that was my major at university. By 1898 it was outlawed, but it had still become part of the public consciousness, the idea of a treadmill. And it wasn't until the 70s with the jogging craze that we re-embraced it as a way to self-manage all the crap and gunk we'd been tricked into buying and living the high-fat, high-carb lifestyle from eating too much junk and sugar. And we actually needed it, like it was to sort of balance that toxic lifestyle. But back to 1898 when it was outlawed, it wasn't until it was roughly within 10 years or so, Henry Ford, 1914, I think 1912, released the first Model T and introduced the factory mode of production, like specialized individual things, and it would move along a factory line. So then we had the production line. So it's interesting to note how the treadmill ended, but the production line reappeared. And since that time, frontline work has been dominated by the clock and dominated by time. Whereas if you go back just 500 years, back to peasants and serfs, it wasn't. It was dominated by the seasons, or dominated by the productive cycle of the land. So for sure you'd have to harvest and you'd have to maintain your crops and the animals, but it wasn't on such a strict daily deadline. It wasn't from 6 a.m. you had to be out in the fields, and then at 6 p.m. you'd come in. You'd do it in cycle with nature, or in cycle with the sun or the darkness or things like that. So you'd have a natural rhythm to lean into. You'd have that structure and routine. So there were times when the days were shorter in winter, and guess what? You would actually work less because you'd be coming home at darkness, which was earlier in the day, and you'd actually rest and recuperate and recover, instead of having this strict 12 hours, like strict 24-hour clock cycle we do now, where we never have time to step off in time, in tune with cycles, or in tune with nature, or in tune with our own body or our own needs. But then you go, what about vacations? What about holidays? And my response to that is, you don't actually say, I'm going to have 10 days off work and just rest. And rest, and I was talking with a client this week, rest as in, rest means taking it easy and just having an afternoon nap every day from 1 p.m. till 3 p.m, scheduling that in. Rest means maybe exercising in the morning for 45 minutes and then spending the rest of the day embracing the concept and the soothing, recuperative ability of being idle. Okay, it's not something to feel guilty or ashamed of, but it's been programmed into us to treat it like that and to think that way. All right, so what happens is we go, oh, I've just lied around all week and I've done nothing, I feel so bad. And people actually believe that as if living slowly is a sign of inadequacy or procrastination or delay or denying what needs to be done. Like, you could have cleaned the gutters, you could have mowed the lawn, you could have remodeled the spare bedroom, or started planning on your next career move. Like, there's endless opportunities to be busier and busier and keep that happening in the background, when the truth is it's not really necessary. And if we can actually reflect honestly with ourselves, a lot of the time it's what I call busy work. And busy work is beautifully nestles in with the idea of the factory production line, because you come home, this is what happens, and I see it in where I live, in this street, in this neighborhood, the people will have, look at that beautiful morning, the people will have a caravan, a boat, 2 cars, maybe a jet ski, maybe, what other little trinkets and things do you have? I don't know, just more, a motorbike, moped, scooters. So you have little bits of extra equipment around the place that you have to maintain and polish and clean and get serviced. And it's the idea of maintenance being a never-ending grind. So even if you do go, no, I'm going to sit here and be idle and enjoy stillness and embrace a mindfulness moment and be at one with myself and not be uncomfortable in the stillness, the back of your mind, you're going, I should be maintaining one of my toys or some of my equipment. I should be, that's what a diligent, conscientious person does. In downtime, they go to maintenance. So if you're not at work, you're in maintenance mode. And if you're not in maintenance mode, what are you doing? You're either asleep, or you're overeating, or you're drinking, or something like that. Like, there's no time for actual stillness and to sit there with leaves in the gutter or with the lawn unmowed, and to sit there and quell your anxiety naturally and go, I don't need to mow the lawn today, it's really insignificant in the big picture. And then I do it myself when I peel back that layer and go, if I don't mow the lawn, the neighbours will think, and I can start building a story, the neighbours will think I'm not coping. The neighbours heard, oh, having a loud discussion the other day, then the lawn's not mowed, they'll think the family's falling apart, or there's some crisis. Like, you can start building that story around it. So living slow is literally a dedication and an energy you have to gift yourself. Okay, and it comes back to another concept a friend of mine introduced me to, and it's called the idea of taking rest as an active thing. It's not a substitute, or it's not a default pattern you fall into. What taking rest means is you go, oh no, from 3 till 4 I'm going to take rest. And people go, oh come on, surely you can come over to our house for a barbecue. And you go, no, I'm going to take rest from 3 till 4. And they go, well, what does take rest mean? And you go, for me it might mean reading a book that I've been delayed, that's been sitting on my bedside table for 6 months. making some progress on that. Or you know what it could mean? Deeply connecting with my partner for 45 minutes. And it doesn't have to be sexual or anything. It can just be totally connecting, like having a conversation and holding space with them and talking about whatever. Or it could be connecting with your children, really deeply slowing down. And for me, in the last few days, that meant, and I don't know if you're all Lego fans out there, but it meant getting out the big box of Lego and sorting through that and putting the windows in one pile, the longer pieces here, putting all the body parts in one area, so we could actually have build a big Lego princess castle and have a extended play in that space just for 45 minutes. And that is a long time to do it, but it's a thing, coming back to the idea of slow living, that we can genuinely simply overlook through other competing priorities and over prioritizing maintenance, over prioritizing it. I know I've got a motorbike and it's got little alert flash things that come up and it goes oil, 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 service, 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 and it has that, and I know it is scheduled to do it preventatively or conservatively, so that it actually comes up probably weeks earlier than it need be. But for anxious people or people who are unable to slow down or want to sort of reconnect, can't live slowly, they'd straight off to get it serviced. So that maintenance default. So what I'm saying is, let's back off on maintenance of objects and things, and instead at least equally prioritize our own self-maintenance. So what does that mean? What does self-maintenance mean to you? That's a big question. So what does self-maintenance mean to you? Well, I can tell you one thing, it's not overeating, it's not having an indulgent chocolate sundae or something like that, and it's not alcohol, it's not drugs, it's not any sort of toxic coping mechanism. What self-maintenance is usually, well, let's put it into, there's three aspects we can go: mind, body, spirit. Mind, body, calm, mind, body, soul. So self-maintenance for your mind is definitely taking rest and committing to it, okay? That for you might be approaching meditation, or actually doing meditation. So if you're new to meditation or you've been flirting with it, actually commit to it and say, from today, from 3 till 4, I'm going to take rest and literally commit to meditation by minimizing distractions, letting everybody know, booking it in for myself, like putting it on the calendar, putting it on the diary, making space with the children or the partner and saying, I'm going to go here, or leaving the building and coming to a space like this, where you can actually take time to immerse yourself in your meditation practice and expect the pushback, expect the frustration, expect the uncertainty and your own drama layers to bubble up, and sit with them comfortably. Because you've got time, you've got nowhere else to be. There's nothing else of urgency to distract you from what you're doing. That can be one part of self-care. That's mind self-care. Okay, body self-care. For me, it always involves movement. So you'll be walking, running, jogging, taking a yoga class. And I've been talking to people, I'm a big promoter of yoga. If it's available to you locally, connect with someone and turn up like 10 minutes early and just be vulnerable and be open and say, look, I haven't done this for 6 months, 6 years, ever. And I'm nervous and they don't even have to say that, just connect with the teacher or the instructor and touch base on that note, and they'll keep an eye out for you and they'll look after you through the class. And the bravery and the vulnerability and the courage to turn up and do the yoga class after an extended comeback is, the yoga teacher will massively respect you just for that, more so than someone who goes every day. They go, oh, they're just doing their routine. But if you're coming back or just starting the journey, it's such an impressive statement of your self-care to yourself, not to anyone else. Probably to the yoga teacher and yourself, to say, here I am, I'm declaring it, I'm owning it, I want to I'm worthy of self-care. And the third one is spiritual self-care, or calmness, or finding that stillness. And for many of us, or for me, that spirituality, let's begin at the very ground floor and let's go with objects and things. What objects and things are you worshipping or unjustly have a top 3 position in your priorities list that don't genuinely deserve it, okay? And that can be something like, look at that, that's the largest saltwater bars in the Southern Hemisphere. It's quite amazing. Okay, so I'm going to start walking back down, leave the cliff now. So for the spirituality thing, I'm going to keep it really simple and just say something like, for me, it's decluttering, right? And when you declutter, you take that, because a lot of things you invest them with a spiritual angle or a spiritual aspect, and they just genuinely don't deserve it. Like your boat might be your relaxation or a means to something, but it doesn't mean that it is actually spiritual at all. It's just a boat, isn't it? I'm just going to show you another shot from here. It's just beautiful here. Check that out. That's just all the way up to the coast. So yeah, for me, the spiritual things begin with something as simple as decluttering. And decluttering means can be something as subtle as cleaning your desk, and then actually taking things to the bin, not saying, oh, I'm going to sell that, I'm going to put that on Gumtree or something, and then putting it like closer to the front door of the house. Literally taking the things you declutter, and they have to leave your property. They can't go to a friend's house. You've got to donate them and gift them to someone else. And the act of gifting and giving away is a powerful spiritual trigger in itself, because you don't need it. You've been, I don't know if you've been hoarding it or just clinging onto it for some reason. You literally don't need it. So that's the sort of tips today. I'm just going to finish here because I've talked for long enough. It's just amazing. It's hard to capture this, a day like this, for you. I've sheltered so much from slowing down, because for me it was always, I don't know if it was growing up in the 80s, it was always about having more, that Gordon Gekko overachieving sort of thing. And it literally is not the answer, because it never ends. You never actually get anywhere because you're constantly thinking you have to get somewhere, and you don't. More realistically is saying, I'm going to slow down and embrace the moment, and for example, be with my 4-year-old daughter, who this week has been a dog a lot of the time. So I'm going to be a dog with her, because if I don't be a dog with her now, I can't go, oh, I'll be a dog with her next week or next month. She won't ever be a dog again. She won't be running around going ruff, ruff, and getting things in her mouth and dropping them off. Like, you can't play dogs with the daughter forever. They go out of it. So what I'm saying is, so much of slowing down is about embracing this moment now. 2017 is an opportunity, and it'll be gone within weeks or hours even, and it's gone, and we've got to really cherish it. Okay, I enjoyed talking with you today. I hope I couldn't have a Facebook Live just because of this location. I want you to leave comments underneath, and I'm heading up towards like getting 15, 16, 17 new clients on board this month. It's been a massive month, massive week, and there's so much energy. I've got so much to share. I'd love you to be a part of it. And it's not a massive financial commitment or a time commitment either. So it can be really simple. It can be phone calls, and can do doing some exercises, and just having an accountability partner is so powerful. I know with existing people I'm working with, that not that I've sort of come down on them hard or anything, but it's just their own feeling of obligation to not let themselves down when it's combined with a coach, and when when you're able to really reflect and talk and have someone actively listen to you, like for 45 minutes or an hour. The stuff that you bring up is so healing, and it's so, the curative effect of it is really powerful, and it's not to be underestimated, because it's, in a nutshell, what happens is you talk about so much like this, like me, just a monologue, one direction about you, and the things that you confront and come up, you go, oh, that's the answer all along. You actually come up with your own answers just through this modality. That's what we're doing. My name's Bren Murphy. Find out more at brenmurphy.online, or Another one I've got is thelifecoach.net.au. So yeah, have a great day, and remember to slow down, live slowly, don't feel guilty, and back off on the maintenance a bit. Okay, thanks a lot.